Bitcoin has seen a volatile week, but our next guest thinks that we only are seeing the tip of the iceberg when it comes to adoption and the progression of blockchain technology. Vincent Chok is the CEO of First Digital Trust. Vincent, it's your first time on Kitco. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, David.
Thank you for being here. Now, this week, as you know, the Bitcoin price has fallen from its highs. It's now at the lowest level since February 2021. Several items on the news have been making rounds and moving the price, shall we say. First, we started with Elon Musk's tweets about Tesla potentially not using Bitcoin anymore and selling its Bitcoin. Now, recently, overnight, the People's Bank of China, the Central Bank of China, has released an interesting statement. I'm just going to show it here. It says, virtual currencies should not be and cannot be used in the market because they're not real currencies, according to a notice posted on PBOC's official WeChat account. So they've sort of they've banned the use of cryptocurrencies from financial institutions as a financial instrument, if you will. Can you comment on whether or not this has any legitimate market impact long term?
Well, I think immediately there is going to be an impact. As we know, China has created their own government-issued cryptocurrency, digital currency, which has been built on the blockchain, and it's fully regulated. They have monitoring systems, wallets that needs to be registered. So other cryptocurrencies in the market, of course, to them is not deemed legitimate currency, as it hasn't gone through their own probably government scrutiny, looking at all of the audits around different currencies. So obviously, I think that for them, they are not recognizing any other cryptocurrencies as legitimate government issued digital assets.
Would this be, if this attitude were adopted by, let's say, the United States, would you as a crypto investor, would that be concerning for you?
Well, I mean, cryptocurrencies, of course, it's a decentralized ledger. It was created for payments. It was created. Now it's a store value. It's like to me, I think it's a virtual property. People put value to it. It's a supply and demand, and we can see that it has gone quite a long ways from its beginnings. So I'm not really concerned about the long-term effects of this. I think that more and more other financial institutions getting involved in this space has really legitimized the industry.
Let's talk about these other financial institutions. I know you've been involved with some crypto funds. How are hedge funds and institutional investors getting into the space now?
Yeah, there are a lot of them are cautiously jumping into the space, but there are a lot of money being invested in research, in looking at proper partnerships. Of course, it's all about regulation. It's about complying with their own regulations, anti-money laundering. So if all the boxes can be ticked, I think hedge funds will definitely be going ahead with a lot of these planned projects involving digital currency.
Yeah. When we talk about the adoption of Bitcoin from the institutional side, besides investing in it, what else are they doing with blockchain? Are they utilizing the technology as an intermediary between financial transactions? Are they using it as a form of payment amongst themselves, B2B? What other uses for blockchain could there be for, let's say, a hedge fund?
Well, we heard recently Bank of America is already teaming up with Nomura on the Paxos platform for trading settlement. A lot of that is T+0, so it's instant settlement, which can save. It's about yield, and if they can do instant settlement, their collateral doesn't have to be used overnight or T+2, T+3. So ultimately, these financial institutions are looking at the yield and instant settlement. So this achieves that by using digital currency.
Okay. I'd like to talk about Bitcoin as a form of payment now. I know some classical economists have viewed Bitcoin as not a legitimate currency because it cannot be used to trade. But this is interesting because recently we've seen many people of influence starting to announce that they want to be paid in Bitcoin. Athletes, for example, NFL athletes. So this is Russell Okung. He's an NFL player, and he has tweeted that he wants to be paid in Bitcoin. So other people are following in the same attitude. It's interesting because we talk about governments legitimizing Bitcoin as a form of payment, institutions legitimizing it, but it seems that it's happening on an individual private contract level first, right? This is an interesting trend. How long before other people start to demand to their employers, I want to be paid in Bitcoin?
Well, I mean, Bitcoin is the king of cryptocurrencies. We know that, and it could go either way with the volatility. It can go really up or down in it swing, very much like the Alberta weather. You could jump
Sure,
20 degrees in one day.
sure.
So, but it could be a trend. I mean, some people will have advisors advising them that Bitcoin, of course, is not a real government issued currency. So how do you that maybe the taxation on being paid in Bitcoin is different than being paid in fiat currency. So we look at everybody has its own reasons, but ultimately I think when people do take a 20-30% loss on their Bitcoin
Yeah.
from a paycheck, I think they'll really look towards maybe stable coins as an alternative, which is backed by fiat dollars.
Okay. Explain how that will work. If I were to be paid in either, well, we know about Bitcoin, but let's say stable coins, for example. I mean, I still can't go to I still have to convert it to fiat currency before I can use it to pay my groceries, right? So ultimately, it's still the same thing.
Well, that's actually changing now
Oh,
because of
okay.
Visa card now is allowing people to make their bill payments with stable coins.
Interesting.
So there was an announcement that Visa is working with USDC to allow their clients to make payments using USDC on the for their bill payments.
I wonder what the interest rate on that is going to be. Probably, yeah, I'd be very curious to look at. Tell us about the DeFi landscape, how it's changing the infrastructure of blockchain.
Well, I think that's really the next generation of where blockchain is headed. Um, we know, again, going back to why financial institutions are really looking at digital assets. That's because of the fact that they can settle and the lower costs and eliminating a lot of the middlemen. So that, of course, that equates to a higher yield for them. So lower costs. But
Hmm.
DeFi is really making a big splash. We see Galaxy, we see a lot of these larger digital asset institutions. Their revenues are really derived a lot from the DeFi. Crypto lending, digital asset lending. So this is just going to grow larger and larger. And this is where, again, where we come in as an independent custodian, where even though it's decentralized financing, we still need an element of centralized players that comes in and hold the actual collateral. So as First Digital, we hold the fiat currencies that can back up these DeFi trading lending platforms,
Okay, tell us
which
more
gives it a
about.
little bit more. Sorry, which gives it again the legitimacy and
Right.
credibility in the industry.
So expanding on First Digital Trust work, are you seeing more growth in DeFi adoption in the emerging markets or in established markets with established financial institutions?
It's actually the established markets that we're seeing a lot of the growth in the DeFi market.
Interesting. I would assume that it's countries without established financial institutions. They need to bypass regulations. They use DeFi as decentralized finance as a way to set up their own exchange. But you're saying that's not the case right now?
No, I mean, most of the larger DeFi platforms are located in more regulated jurisdictions like the United States,
I see.
Singapore, Hong Kong. But the lesser jurisdictions like South Korea has actually pulled away, and like Indonesia, a lot of these other countries that were growing quickly in the digital asset space a few years ago seems to be taking a back seat to more regulated jurisdictions.
Okay, so when we talk about adoption, we've talked about institutional adoption, we've talked about individual adoption, like the athletes. Let's go back to government adoption now. You talked about CBDC, central bank backed digital currencies. China is not the only country doing it. The ECB has announced it's interested. The Bank of England has announced interest in Bitcoin. The Federal Reserve has not yet announced it's interested, but maybe that will change in the future. Who knows? Anyway, the point is many governments are trying to use it. Suppose these CBDCs come online. When they do, what's going to happen to Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the other stable coins? Will people give up using these coins, and will they be forced to use government coins?
No, I think they will coexist. I think there's a purpose for people using the government coins, and there's purpose for people using the existing stable coins in the market. I think there's a comfort zone. People already seen the establishment of these top tier stable coins in the market. And as far as the government issue cryptocurrencies, that's going to be very heavily regulated and heavily monitored. So, of course, it's going to be in their own native currencies, but they will definitely be issued, and they will have to coexist with what's in the market now. I think that the growth of these government issued cryptocurrencies will really rely on how much regulations they really put into people holding those cryptocurrencies in their wallets. So will you need to be a licensed financial institutions to issue these wallets to hold these government issued currencies? So there's a lot of questions around that, and taxations, reporting,
Right.
all of these issues are always going to be in play.
So you're saying that as a consumer, there's different uses. Let's say I live in, let's just take China. Let's say I live in China. There would be different use cases for me as a consumer if I use, let's say, Bitcoin or the Chinese digital yuan.
Well, Chinese digital yen is more for making like settlements, making peer-to-peer payments for people like the retail retail market. People can pay their WeChat accounts, top up WeChat accounts instead of just sending the yuan directly. They can use the digital yen. But for institutions to make larger transactions, like maybe for trade financing, things like that, that could be an interesting how foreign companies will accept digital yuan as settlement. So the conversion from the digital yen to US dollars, what is that going to look like?
Okay, fair enough. Finally, let's talk about the price then. If you think that CBDCs and existing coins can coexist, however, so let's assume they will coexist, but will CBDCs put pressure on the price of Bitcoin in terms of price growth, do you think?
Well, we've seen there's really no way to really determine what brings a Bitcoin value ups and downs. I mean, we see that with a tweet from Elon Musk, and bang, Bitcoin goes up. Another tweet, it goes back down. So it's really hard for me to say if the government issue currencies or governments can really affect the price of Bitcoin by purposely devaluing it because they're cryptocurrencies. I think it's two different functions. It's very two different types of functions that it plays.
And finally, what's your outlook on the price? I mean, given the price decline this week, are you feeling a little more pessimistic, or are you still bullish long term? How do you feel?
Well, I'm bullish long term. I mean, if you look at the supply and demand, there's a lot of demand for Bitcoin, but the supply, as we know, there's only 21 million that ever been issued. So most of that is lost in the crypto space somewhere. But I feel that the more demand there is in the market, the value of Bitcoin will always go up.
And before I let you go, Vincent, I just want to comment on the regulation aspect of Bitcoin. You are very familiar with the regulatory changes that's always ongoing. What kinds of new regulations can we expect now, today?
I think regulations is always going to happen with governments and jurisdictions. Treatment of cryptocurrencies or digital assets are different in different jurisdictions. So we see challenges government has to really adopt and adapt to their own set of rules. And, those are a lot of challenges that they face with, dealing with different departments. There's their money laundering side, there's taxation, there's how these assets are going to be treated for succession, inheritance. So, of course, this is still quite unknown to a lot of government regulators, how to treat digital assets, but it's an ongoing battle for them, and it'll be a challenge going ahead in the future for sure.
Fantastic. Vincent, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you very much for your information and updates.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching Kitco News. I'm David Lin.